This time last year, Carolina hadn't picked up a single transfer yet. This year, they're already done.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. Today, hope you got your money in. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch of the day to get your Tuesday going the right way. I want to say a special welcome to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great insiders as well. Welcome in. It's so good to be together. Let's get cracking. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on today's show, going to be really fun. We got some basketball, we got some football to talk about. In the transfer portal, Carolina has gotten it done fast, not standing around holding the bag, waiting on lesser transfer portal entries to come along. Very good by Carolina, which is a good sign for the nation's most valuable college basketball team. We'll talk about that study. Speaking of value, how did spring practice go? Well, I think a lot of folks think it was blah for the football team. I happen to think it's the most Bill Belichick thing there could be. We'll get into all of that. But we got to start with transfer portal, where Carolina made another move on Sunday night, landing Alabama transfer and Chapel Hill native Jarin Stevenson. And you and I can disagree wildly or agree completely on if Carolina got the correct guys in the transfer portal this offseason. That's not the conversation I want to have right now. The conversation I want to have, and the point that you cannot argue, is that it happened infinitely more quickly this year than it did last year. One of the, people made such a big deal about Carolina not getting it going last year, not moving quickly enough. Well, that argument has no grounds this time around. Last year, Carolina picked up a commitment from Cade Tyson on April 28th. Today's the 15th. That's almost a full 2 weeks later. Ven-Allen Lubin committed on May 23rd. Ty Claude, August 14th. Obviously, he didn't even enter till late in the game, but still. Those are the 3 dates those guys committed to Carolina. This year, Carolina has 4 commits and is basically done 2 weeks prior to that, right? Jarin Stevenson committed on the 13th. That's over 2 weeks ahead of when they got their first commit last year, was when they got their 4th commit this year, right? Because you already had Kyan Evans, you already had Henri Veesaar, you already had Jonathan Powell, and now you've got Jarin Stevenson as well. 4 of them. Quick succession. And keep in mind, this is in a year where the transfer portal opened a week later than it did last year. So again, Carolina is making moves, and they're making them in a hurry. You cannot complain about that if that was one of your complaints. Again, this is not a conversation about if you think Coach Davis and Jim Tanner and everybody got the right guys. That's a conversation for another day. This is just about speed. So shout out to those guys for getting that done. Bringing in Jim Tanner, clearly already helping right out of the gate. I also want to point out a tweet from Fran Fraschilla on Monday night. He said, quote, "I talked to one Power 5 assistant coach today who told me they are still looking for 2 or 3 more players, but the high major player pool is shrinking," and quoted the coach as saying, "We're shopping at TJ Maxx right now," with apparently none of the due respect to TJ Maxx. And this is another reason why it's like, hey, we assume more people enter the portal. We assume there will be other high-level names, but you just don't know. And the biggest names come and are gone typically pretty quickly. And if you want to get in on that, if you need players to fill out your roster and to complete it, you can't wait on the hope that somebody's going to come to you late. You can't wait on the hope that some international guy is going to pop. You can't wait on the hope of X, Y, and Z. If you want to get your dudes, you got to be a player early and often, and you got to be able to spend, you got to be ready to spend whatever is the going price then and there. Because that's the world we live in, where there's no parameters around it. There's no time like I mean, there's the timeline of hopping. Anyway, you hear what I'm saying? Like, you just got to do what you got to do. I think about it like fantasy football. Have you ever done an auction draft? Way better than a snake draft for my money's worth. But here's what I learned pretty quickly in doing an auction draft. I would think right out of the gate, like, all right, I got this budget. Ooh, that guy's going for several dollars more than I wanted to spend. Too rich for my blood. I'm out. And after about 5-6 players worth of doing that, I'm thinking, ooh, I got all this money to spend. All the big players are coming to me. Well, guess what? The big players are already off the board and I wasn't willing to spend. So finally, one year I learned. I spent big on guys early that I wanted. I identified who I wanted and I was like, I don't care what it takes. I'm getting that dude. And that's what you got to do. That is where we're at right now. Until there is some kind of cap, until there is some kind of regulation, identify who you want and go snatch them up. Whatever the cost. Do it. In my opinion, I said this is not a conversation about, this is a conversation about when they got it done, not a conversation about if they got it done right. I think, frankly, I mean, you can bicker and argue and point and say we don't have this and we do have that and all this. Truth of the matter is none of us really know until we get it on the court and see what's happening. And even then, it often takes now in this portal age till January or February to really figure out if you did it right. So right now we could say, oh, we need another shooter. We need another guard. We don't have enough bulk in the front court. We don't have enough shooting on the wing. Whatever it is, we can make all those arguments, but none of us really know right now. We're just spitting into the wind. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but it sounds good. As we think back to last year, not only was the complaint about slowness, but the biggest complaint for me, at least my biggest complaint, and I don't want to lump you all in with me, although I imagine a lot of you would like to be lumped in with this argument, was my biggest complaint last portal season was the lack of a game-changing front court addition. Whomever that was, Jonas Adu, Cliff Amori, whomever it was, Carolina wasn't able to pull that off. Literally the only bigs they got were Ven-Allen, Lubin, and Ty Claude in the portal. That was it. Obviously, Ty Claude just, he was kind of similar to James Okonkwo the year before, just kind of filled a bench role and as needed if there's an injury or foul trouble or whatever it may be. Ven-Allen Lubin really found himself down the stretch, or maybe you would say it, Carolina really found Ven-Allen Lubin down the stretch. But whatever it was, it worked. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. All along, I did not view Ven-Allen Lubin as Carolina's starting five, but rather as the backup five. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Ven. I just mean I think there were better options out there to start ahead of him. And then I think Ven is a great backup for whomever that is. And now we know it's going to be Henri Veesaar. I love that. And now we stare at a situation where legitimately it's the case that you got what you need in the front court. You got the depth, you got the size, you got again, I know that some argue for Ven-Allen Lubin as the starting four, as a power forward along Henri Veesaar. Nah, that ain't it. This dude is not going to be your starting four alongside Veesaar. Now, if Hubert Davis does that and puts Ven at the four, come back and find me and point fingers and cast aspersions and all that. Fine, whatever. I'm just telling you, Ven-Allen Lubin is not Carolina's starting four. He's their backup five. Because now you've got this legit deep backcourt where Ven-Allen Lubin can be your backup, still playing a prominent role, right? Like, boy, he was effective when he was in. But last year, I mean, good grief. A year after bemoaning J-Wash ain't it, we look at now what, at least on paper, and I'm going to have to look around the rest of the ACC, this might be the most deep front court, in the conference. You've got at the five, you've got Veesaar, you've got Lubin, you've got James Brown. At the four, you've got Wilson. you've got Stevenson now, and you've got Jae'lyn High. Like you're 3 deep at both front court positions. At least one of whom can play down to the 3 as needed, maybe 2. And you think about the size issues last year. Ty Claude, 6'7", Ven-Allen Lubin, 6'8", Jay Witt, 6'9", Jalen Washington, James Brown, both 6'10". This year's roster, and we'll see what the new sizes are as the roster comes out. But based on last year's rosters, Ven-Allen Lubin, 6'8", 230. Caleb Wilson on the McDonald's All-American Game roster, 6'9", 205. Jae'lyn High's freshman listing was 6'9", 225. James Brown, 6'10", 215. Jarin Stevenson, 6'11", 215. And Henri Veesaar, 7 foot, 235. You've already got 2 dudes that are bigger than all of your dudes last year. James Brown was the tallest Tar Heel last year. I guess tied with Jalen Washington. You got 2 dudes taller than that now. And that's where things are at. And I like that it's a bit of a diverse group too. You've got some front court guys that can do a couple different things. So I really like where this is at. Carolina has taken care of business, and they've done so quickly. And they've got what projects to me to be a really, really strong front court. I like that. More to unpack on it in the coming days. Obviously, we still do need to talk about the specifics of Jarin Stevenson's stats. Need to talk about how that's going to match up with the backcourt, all of that kind of stuff, and we'll get there for sure. But for now, I want to talk about the entity that is North Carolina basketball, the enterprise that is North Carolina basketball. Because according to a recent study, that is the most valuable entity in all of Division I men's college basketball. Yeah, the North Carolina Tar Heels. Let's talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it all without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get these playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off. Here's why I like Game Time. Not only can you get 60% off, but you can do it not just for sports, but for concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. I like that they have all-in pricing. It's a little toggle you can turn on to where you can see all those back-end fees added in real time. So you know, like, okay, you don't have to like try to calculate. I buy this ticket at this price and then is added on. No. You can turn on the all-in pricing and you see it all right there. No surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. The North Carolina Tar Heels are the most valuable college basketball team, Division I. So says an article written a week ago today in the Wall Street Journal by Andrew Beaton. He was reporting on a study conducted by Ryan Brewer, an associate professor of finance at Indiana University, Columbus, which is just in the Indianapolis area. It includes 361 Division I teams, so like 3 shy of everybody. And it's really interesting when you look at this list, because it's not just the entities that you think are the bluest of blue bloods at the top, although there are a couple. Number 2 on this list, the Duke Blue Devils, eclipsed by only the Tar Heels. Yes, sir-ree. Not much room for Carolina to oust their rivals, but there's enough, and they only needed one, and Carolina slots in right there. Now, here's what's interesting about this. Carolina is valued at $378 million, according to this study. Duke is just, in quotes, $8 million behind at 370. I say just because in my real world, where I will never sniff this type of money, $8 million is a lot of money. But in this world, where we're talking, over $350 million, $8 million is kind of, whatever, fine. But Carolina valued at $378 million, Duke at $370. And after that, it is a gargantuan drop off from Duke at number 2. Remember, $370 million valuation down to $279 million for Indiana. That's $91 million less. A far cry from where Duke and Carolina are, which, just as an aside, I think is just another feather in the cap for greatest rivalry in all of college sports, man. I mean, it's just Carolina and Duke setting themselves apart at that level. And what you hear me not saying, the word Kentucky hasn't come out of my mouth yet. The name Kansas hasn't come out of my mouth yet. You haven't heard UConn or Michigan State or anyone else. Carolina and Duke right there at the top. Interestingly, of those two teams that just squared off in the national championship last week, just curious to look at where teams are at. Florida was 31st on this list, worth $121 million. Houston, 58th, valued at $81 million. There was also a women's basketball study. The Lady Tar Heels come in at 63rd. So, okay, Isaac, that's great. Fine. Well and good. What are the parameters of the study? How did we land on North Carolina? Like, I'm glad and I'm happy, but how did we land on North Carolina as the most valuable commodity, the most valuable team in men's college basketball? How did we arrive at these numbers? Well, according to the article, this is a regular study that Brewer conducts. And basically it derives from the question, what would these teams be worth if they could be bought and sold like professional sports teams? So if we were valuating, not evaluating, but if we were valuing a college basketball team similar to the way we would ascribe value to an NFL franchise or an NBA franchise or whatever it is, he's trying to do the same thing with this. And to me, it feels also very similar to creating like a valuation for a business or a company just out in the secular world. It feels very much like that. So his process for answering that big question of, hey, if these were pro sports teams, what would we value them at? According to Beaton in his study, he looks at revenue and he looks at cash flow, and then he makes financial projections about sustainability, right? Like, if it was business, it would be the things that uphold a business. Is it a good model? Is it good leadership? Do they have good backing underneath them? All of that kind of stuff. That's what's going into this. So again, studying revenue, studying cash flow, and financial projections about sustainability. Now, here's what's really interesting about this to me. Part of the caution from Brewer in his study is he says that he is calculating what the financials say a team should be worth if it were put up for auction. The real like if this actually happened in the real world and you could go out and buy North Carolina Tar Heels men's basketball, he suggests, quote, the real price could dwarf that because sports franchises are rare assets, end quote. So basically, like the numbers tell me Carolina is worth, what was it, $378 million. But in actuality, because sports franchises are such a rare enterprise, a rare asset with rare opportunities to get in on that and grow its valuation, like think of how much Jerry Jones has grown the Cowboys from where he bought them to the enterprise that it is today, despite them not being great as on field. It's still true. So the real price for Carolina would probably be dwarfed by whatever this is. So says Brewer. Another acknowledgement we have to recognize is he says with the House settlement pending and the ability for school to pay athletes directly, these numbers could certainly be affected by that. So certainly, absolutely it could. The top 10 in this study, Carolina, Duke, Indiana. I already told you were the top 3, with Indiana way back of Duke at number 2. Number 4 is Ohio State. Number 5, Louisville. Number 6, Arizona. 7, Syracuse. 8, Illinois. Number 9, here comes Kentucky with John Calipari and Arkansas hot on their heels at number 10. So as you look at this list, the ACC has 4 out of the 10 or 2 out of the 5 or 40%. That's not in line with where the on-court product is these days. We've got to find a way to change that as a conference. We've got to find a way to tell the tale of, hey, say whatever you want, but North Carolina is the most valuable entity in all of men's college basketball. You see it, what the football program is working on doing right now, and how could, in a day and age of conference realignment, when it comes up again, and inevitably it will, how could you not be enticed by this program? It just makes sense and just lines up. So, end of the day, look, this is just a study. That's all it is. But in this landscape where valuation really, really matters, it's more than just a study in my mind. It's a look at North Carolina. Look how valuable this team is. We already wanted them because of their academics, because of the national brand, because of the Argyle, because of everything. And now we're saying they're the most valuable college basketball entity. Bring that on, says the SEC or the Big Ten or whoever it is, right? So while, again, it is just a study, it is a data point that helps keep you at the top of the sport. Excuse me. Think about conference realignment. It's not just about wins and losses, but also about value, both real and perceived. That matters. And the Tar Heels, at least the basketball team, are at the top of the heap. And I don't just mean the top of the ACC heap. I mean the top of the national heap when it comes to this. Now, what's interesting about all this money we're talking about with basketball is there is a giant chasm in the projections from the most valuable college basketball team to the most valuable of college football teams. So North Carolina leading the nation with a valuation of $378 million. Ohio State's football projection in the same study, 1.96 billion with a B is why I emphasize it. That is astronomically different from where we're at with the basketball teams. And this is why people put so much money into football. So there's that. Very, very wildly separate. Now, the question is, how can and what will Carolina do to capitalize on all this? I don't know. But you take it and you do something with it. And when conferences come call and say, hey, did you see this? Look at this. Bring it on, right? Okay, let's turn our attention now to Carolina football, where Bill Belichick is working to raise the profile of Carolina's football program as well. The Tar Heels had their final spring football practice on Saturday, and quite frankly, many people thought it was, blah, yawn, a snoozer. I say it's precisely because of going out to get Bill Belichick, but it's not a bad thing. I'll explain what I mean in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monarch Money, you ever check your bank account and sit there and wonder, like, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And you guys, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just some budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and rather you start building wealth. Instead of juggling a whole bunch of apps at the same time, you can just use Monarch, hone in on that to check your finances, to track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Something that is a value for my wife and I is that we are aligned when it comes to finances. We're on the same page. And thankfully, because of that, when it comes to Monarch Money, managing my finances with my wife is smoother than ever. I can track shared accounts, personal accounts. I can set goals. I can stay on the same page with my wife without the stress, critically and most importantly. So take control of your finances at Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Check it out. This past weekend, Carolina football had their final practice of spring practice, the 15th one. It was open to the public and it was entitled, quote, Practice Like a Pro. Carolina had decided not to do a spring football game. That's kind of a thing now that a lot of other schools are going to. But here's my big takeaway from all of this. People seem to be very bothered by how blah Saturday was. I'm not bothered in any way. In fact, I'm encouraged because Bill Belichick is out here doing Bill Belichick and doing exactly what I think Bubba Cunningham has hired him to do. Create a winning football team and culture. Yes, you got a bump just by hiring Bill Belichick. That's the storyline. That's the college football news cycle. That's the national news cycle in some ways when that happened. But what did you expect? Did you think he was suddenly going to turn into P.T. Barnum and go dance a jig and put on a circus for you? No, that's not Bill Belichick. What you're getting, what we're seeing is the guy, the multi-time winning Super Bowl head coach that we have gone out to get. That is who you're seeing. Him. Not some caricatured version of that. And so people that are bothered by the blah of Saturday, I ain't bothered in any single way. This is what you get when you hire Bill Belichick. No numbers on jerseys? Well, that's exactly what he did in New England until he was forced by the NFL to put numbers on. Bill doesn't care if you and I and everyone watching can't identify guys. Why? Competitive edge. Why? Because we're a team. We're not about you and you and you. We're all together on this. I think both of those things can be and are true. You can recognize some of it. The offense is in blue. The defense is in white. Quarterback's in red. Here we go. Have fun. Right? So that's the extent of it. Bill just doesn't care if you can identify guys. Because, again, there's the team of it, but think about the competitive advantage. Why would you give your opponents, why would you give TCU preparing for you for game one any sort of advantage? If they don't know numbers, the tape that they've got is nearly useless from a personnel standpoint. It's I don't know. Who is that guy? Who's that dude? You can't see him with his hat off, so you don't know. Another thing people got up in arms about was no media availability post-practice. And I get that. The media literally gets their storylines and talking points and things like that from those interviews. And that's tough when you don't get it. But there was, when I don't just mean Bill Belichick. I mean, there was no media availability after this thing on Saturday. No Coach Belichick, none of the rest of the staff, none of the players, nothing. Why? Because Bill Belichick, in all of his shrewdness, is not going to risk you, a player, or you, an assistant coach, or even himself, accidentally giving away some tiny morsel of information that could help an opponent. That's his MO. That's what he's going to do. He's not going to give you any of those media moments, those press moments, until either one, you force him to do it, or two, he realizes he can actually maybe be a little bit subversive in it and get you thinking something you don't want to think, or get you thinking something that's wrong. If Bill Belichick is feeding me information in that format, I'm at least second guessing it, if not third and fourth guessing it. Is this real? Is he making this up? Is he pulling my chain? So if there's no mandate, why are we surprised that he's not putting jersey numbers on? He wouldn't. I think people are also surprised, thirdly, that this was not some big grand showy event. Well, that's not practicing like a pro. That's not acting like you've been there before. That's not what the purpose of this was. It's to train guys to be professional football players. I recently read an article kind of in summary of Saturday's events that started off this way. Quote, Carolina football held its first fan-centric event of the Bill Belichick era, and then it went on. That's the mistake to me. This is not intended to be some fan-centric special thing. It's just not. This is intended to be an opportunity for us as a football program to keep learning, keep working, and keep growing and getting better. That was the goal of what Coach was trying to get done. And if fans enjoy it, great. If not, I don't even care if I'm Bill Belichick. And again, no spring game is not that weird anymore. I'll just list off a couple. I was just looking around. Here's a couple other high-profile schools that didn't have a spring game this year. Texas, Bama, Auburn, LSU, USC, Oklahoma, Florida State. None of those are having games either. In fact, NC State, I don't think is letting anybody in on anything. I think all of their practices have even been closed. So this is going to be a wild news flash for you. I'm not Bill Belichick. What? Crazy, Isaac. I know it's the craziest thing. But I've got to imagine his thinking with this is somewhere along these lines. If we did some super showy spring event, it's going to bring in people maybe for a little bit. But then because we didn't focus on winning and getting better in moments like that, we started losing games. And people might come around for the flashy show for a little bit, but if the substance isn't there, they're gone. So yes, people will show up for your flashy event, but if wins don't follow that event, it doesn't matter. So Bill is like, again, this is me projecting onto him. I don't care if you show up for this Play Like a Pro event or not, fans. But when we start winning consistently at a high level, everyone will show up and stick. So I'm less concerned about you right now and more concerned with putting together a winning football team that can draw in infinitely more fans than would come to Keenan Stadium on Saturday. Substance over style. Style is here today and it could be gone tomorrow, but substance, man, that hangs around, and that's a program builder. That's what we're trying to do. Now, a couple quick takeaways from this, and then we'll get out of here. Quarterback situation, Ryan Brown, the Purdue transfer, got the vast majority of the snaps. You know, when it was like the first person up, it was always him, followed by Bryce Baker. Those were the two guys that got snaps on Saturday. Bryce Baker, the incoming freshman. With Max, he's not fully back healthy yet. He was throwing, but he's not ready for contact and doing things like that yet. So we wait to see what's going to happen with that. Secondly, the transfer portal for football does reopen on Wednesday, and I imagine we'll have some guys enter, but also some opportunity to bring more guys in. I mean, this staff has been doing work out there getting guys in. And so, you know, there was this whole thing on Monday about Nico from Tennessee. And it's like, we're not taking Nico. There's too much with it, right? That's not a thing. But we will wait to see. Does Carolina land anybody else of note? Do they lose anybody else? Anybody of note? That's something to keep your eyes on. Let's remember there's grass now. It had been turf in Mac Brown 2.0 era, and now it's back to real grass. So that's interesting. And then finally, you know, while you can't identify everybody, some people just stand out like a sore thumb and you can't help it. Bo Atkinson is about to have himself a year in the ACC, and I can't wait to see how he continues to grow and grow, the more so under Coach Belichick's development and leadership. Should be phenomenal football. Can't wait to see it all. But again, the blah factor of this doesn't do anything for me. I don't care a bit. If Coach Belichick doesn't care, I don't care. He's got bigger fish to fry than some Saturday in April, right? All right, thanks so much for joining me. That's a wrap on today's show. If you've not subscribed to you on Locked On Tar Heels on YouTube, go ahead and do that so you don't miss out on anything. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you there. Just hit 500 members. Why don't you be the next one to come join that? Link's in the show notes. If you want to go even deeper with the show, Locked On Tar Heels Insider Program, would love to have you there. That link is also in the show notes. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.